Welcome to the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. I'm your host, Desiree Stanley, here to share some amazing conversations. We're talking business, health, making and saving money, or starting something epic. Think of this as your go-to spot for stories that do a lot more than just kill time. They spark ideas, give you a boost, and perhaps even change the way you look at the world. I'm pulling in the experts, the thinkers, the doers, and the dreamers. We're about to dive into stories that open doors and ideas that light up your brain. Here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. I'm your host, Desiree Stanley, and with me today is my guest, Catherine Duncan. Welcome, Catherine. How are you today?
I am good. Great to meet you. Thanks for having me on today.
Wonderful. And I am honored to have you on the show. You, Catherine, are so accomplished. You're an author. You are an inspirational speaker. You are a spiritual consultant, a holistic healer and resilience trainer. And I mean, I really want to hear all about this and sharing this with our audience. But Catherine, can you start by telling us how this came to be for you? Like, what was the path and the journey that led to this point?
Mhm. Well, I'll start with be careful what you pray for. Like, where do you want me? Like, that's kind of a joke. I started out in the corporate world. I was actually in advertising. I was with Time Magazine, and I started feeling this big nudging, like, this isn't the path. Even though it was just a very successful career, I was doing really well. And I just was feeling internally like, oh, something missing. This isn't right on. And I went through I had a near death experience, whitewater rafting in Costa Rica on a Time Inc. company trip that really cracked me open to, nope, this isn't the path. I need to listen. Where am I being called? And I stepped off that path to listen. And then everything started to unfold. The path of studying theology and divinity and becoming an ordained minister, a chaplain. And then now I have a private practice as a spiritual consultant. So really about listening deeply inward. And also a comment to share. I mean, this theme of being cracked open also occurred when I was 11, 12 years old, facing a very grave cancer diagnosis. And my life really opened then, where I started contemplating as a teenager, why am I alive? What does it mean to be here? And I've been thinking and contemplating and opening into life every day ever since.
Oh my gosh, Catherine, the two near death experience when you think about 11 years old with a cancer diagnosis. And so, wow, I mean, that's just so powerful. And really, you beat it. Obviously, you're still here, and there's a reason that you are. The work that you're doing, I think, really speaks to the reason why you are still
Mhm.
here, and the work that you're doing with others to help them through this journey of life and the experiences. So tell us what you discovered just even as like in your early teens going through this experience. What was that like for you and what did it teach you at that time? Because I'm kind of curious, having gone through that, then you still got into advertising in print magazine kind of thing. So talk to us about that. Like what was that about?
When again, 11 years old, 10, 11, I was just turning 11, diagnosed with a really rare form of childhood cancer. They told my parents I had a 20% chance to live. And interestingly, this was in the 70s. They had chaplains, they had therapist counselors. No one talked to me, not even my family, not even my parents. No one talked to me. And it was pretty grave, the treatments and everything I went through. And very quickly, I felt like I was on a tightrope walking between life and death. I felt death really close in everything I witnessed and experienced and how sick I was. And I organically started to pray. I told no one, faith had meant nothing, but I just started to pray. Could I please live to be 20 years old? I thought as an 11-year-old, if I could live to be 20, that's it. That would be the dream. And I prayed and prayed and prayed this. And it was not long after that this feeling one afternoon of this peace poured through my body. It was just like, and took my breath away. And knowing in that moment that I wasn't alone, that I was going to live, that I'm part of something greater. I ended up starting to call it God. Just this deep sense of oneness with God, infinite spirit, universe. There's so many names. I don't get hung up on language that has been with me to this day and just set me on this path as a teenager. I started as a teenager reading Who is Man, philosophy books, existentialism and human emotions. I just started reading all these books about life and meaning and why am I here. And to this day, I'm a big reader. I'm a big learner and a deep knowing in my heart and soul. That is who we are. Our soul, we're in a body for a short time and then our soul goes on and listening inward. And so leaving Time Inc. it was a really big decision. I mean, my whole family, 5 siblings, my father, all in the corporate world, that was the path. So I did it. I tried it in advertising for a while and it was fun, but it wasn't truly why I'm here, what I was called to do. So it did take courage to just walk away and walk away. My family, my father was extremely upset with me, why I would leave a job with Time Magazine. And then to study theology, but I'll tell you, he became my biggest supporter before he died. And it was incredible. So listening inward, who are we called to be on this earth? Why are we here? And that's the message in my book and the path that I'm on.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. And it's so important, I think, to remember that others may not understand the journey that we are on, that we need to go through. But when we are committed to that, they come around. And it sounds like your father really became, like you said, your biggest supporter. So he began to understand why it was important for you to be doing what you're doing. And
Mhm.
so I think that's such a great reminder for the listeners. Like, people may not understand why you want to do something or what purpose it's going to serve, but you, in your heart, in your soul, somewhere inside, there's a reason. And to have the courage and strength to follow through on that, despite what others are telling you, I think
Mhm.
is tremendous. So thank you for sharing that with us. I want to touch a little bit also on, you mentioned in the beginning about your experience on the trip while you were whitewater rafting. And so what happened at that point? Was that really where you said, okay, this is it? I really need to get serious about this mission that I feel like I'm being called to do?
It was a similar experience to my childhood of all of a sudden here I'm on this raft. It was really treacherous waters. I was wearing a life vest and a helmet. And next thing you know, I'm thrown overboard. And I was like, this is it. I'm going to die now. I mean, this is what I had the fear as a child. And it was this mystical experience of this white light that came around my entire body. And this voice, crystal clear, said, living or dying is fine. And this peace again poured through me. But this time I didn't know. Was I gonna live? Was I not? But it gave me the courage to just let go and move into this peace. And that's how I came out from under a rapid. And they pulled me onto this boat and I survived. And it was a life-changing turning point for me. Literally 2 days later, we were flying home. I was in a taxi in Minneapolis. I called my mom, who was very spiritual, well, I'd say even more religious. And before I even told her what happened, she had never shared a dream in her whole life. She said, Catherine, I dreamed that I slipped into a river and I almost drowned. And then I woke up. And this was the day this happened to me. She never shared a dream since. But it was so moving that it gave me the clarity and the courage, like, I'm ready to follow where I'm being called. And even though I had this wonderfully successful career with Time Magazine, my husband supported me. I'm just like, that's it. It gave me the courage to let go and to really open into and listen to. I think every one of us, everyone listening right now, we all have this inner guidance, this nudging, every one of us, but it's not when we're in our thinking mind. It's when we're in the moment, present, feeling into our heart, just being here. There it is. And that's what I've been listening to really since I left Time Warner. I've been listening to it every day of my life.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. really, it's so, so amazing. And again, just goes to show that you absolutely are here for a reason and a
Mhm.
purpose and to be guiding others. And so that's just fantastic. Thank you for that. And you said something in there that I want to talk more about. And it was transition from the mind to the heart. And so you, I think, share a lot about how we can become more heart centered in our living. Is kind of like the way you term it, right? Heart centered living. So,
Mhm.
what are some maybe practical steps that the listeners can begin to take to get into this kind of living?
Mhm. It is so easy for all of us to live in our mind, to live head up. Most people, I'd say a lot in the US, live in their mind runs them, they're living even on autopilot. But here's the thing, our body is always in the present moment. And we know that we're not our thought, we're not our feeling. I mean, every one of us, we have 60, 70 thoughts a day. If you tune in, you can notice like, oh, what I've been thinking about for the last hour. Or so I even just share with people, can you start to tune in? Make it a point, a habit. I mean, it takes 66 days to form a habit, but even I'm going to post a note. Okay, mid-morning, mid-afternoon, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to tune in to see where I'm at. Am I in my mind? Is my mind running me? Or can I then take a break and have some moments of presence? So when we're in the moment, and not in our mind, we're in the past, the future, when we're just present, this is that, oh, breathing room, that peace, that ease, a sense of like all is well in this moment. Oh, it just is so comforting, I think, to come into the moment. So my book has 42 exercises, how to do this, how to come into the moment, how to feel love, how to feel flow. So even right now, while I'm talking, many exercises. One, you could have a practice of mindfulness. I mean, maybe you drink coffee or tea in the morning, just even in the morning, you make a cup of coffee and you hold the coffee cup. And for a minute or two, can you just not have the TV, the radio, your computer, your phone, like all the distractions, and just hold the coffee cup, feel the heat, smell the aroma, take a sip, maybe you have a window to look out of. You're just fully here and now for a minute or two, drinking your coffee. Amazing. I mean, a powerful exercise. You could do that walking midday. You have to go to the bathroom, walking to the bathroom, just feel your body, feel the strength of your body being supported by the floor. Having lunch. Maybe you have a sandwich and you're at a desk or home, whatever, but just again, it's a choice, a mindful choice, not to have our computer, our phone, all the distractions, to just fully be present for a few minutes eating your sandwich. And here's the research. When you do this, it increases your prefrontal cortex, your executive functioning, your brain. It is so powerful and healing. And you could do exercises, and I have a lot of these in my books. You could do the exercise of breathing, take a moment, putting your hand on your lower abdomen, and just feel your lower abdomen expand on the in breath. Then recede on the out breath, brings you into here and now. So many different practices and different ways, and every one of us will resonate with one or another, but just how can you feel into the moment and find the one that speaks to you and say, okay, I'm going to do this every day for a few minutes. And I promise you, it will be life changing.
Yeah. Thank you, Catherine. I have heard many guests have shared, and you're reiterating how important it is to recognize right now in this moment and taking the time to actually do that. And we're not talking about an hour here. You're talking about just even a few moments of just coming back to the present. And so thank you so much for that reminder of how we can do that. We can do that by pausing with our coffee in the morning, pausing with our lunch, just recognizing what we're eating. How does it feel when we're chewing, right? It's like
Mhm.
just being present to what's happening in this moment. And so thank you for that. Again, it's beautiful. I love it. And I think that it's so important because we do get lost in what's happened in the past, what we are thinking about for the future. And we're not really living because this moment right now is our life, right?
Exactly. And here, the research, 5 minutes of breathing, meditating, practice of just being present, it lowers your blood pressure, your heart rate, your cortisol level. It just stimulates that calm parasympathetic state. This is research from the 70s. Dr. Herbert Benson, the relaxation response, revolutionary then. Now it's pretty widely accepted nationwide, but we can self-regulate our body, calm our body, and just all the healing benefits of just practicing presence, being in the moment is really incredibly powerful physically, emotionally, spiritually.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. Oh my gosh. Okay, well then can we talk a little bit about you share 5 practices that help to open your heart and your soul. And so this is like unlocking emotional and spiritual healing, right? So,
Mhm.
what are these 5 practices and how can we begin to implement them in our lives?
The 5 practices I've been living organically most of my life. The first practice is just what we've been talking about, come back to the present moment. Just being here now, coming to the moment is then how we can move into the next practices. The next is connecting with something greater. Then grow your trust, embody love, and hold openness. And all these 5 practices really come together in living deeply from our heart. I think our heart's a doorway to our soul. I think we're a soul, a spirit, and a body for a short time. And then we go on. Our soul is eternal. So I practicing how can you feel presence? We all can practice love. It starts with ourselves, loving ourselves, self-compassion. I think that sense of being present and oneness with God, infinite spirit, this eternal oneness. It's all about love and that feeling of love and oneness. And we can drop into that. We can feel it. We can grow it. So I have practices in all of this. And these are practices I've done much more. Like just a quick example. I mean, I'm in my 30s. I remember thinking, I want to feel more love. And because I grew up in a family, more of like a corporate executive type family. And I never heard I love you. I did not hear those words. And so in my 30s, I mindful like I want to feel more love. And I came across this meditation about going into your heart, feeling your heart. And I have a version of it in my book. And I did this meditation every day for 30 days. I would go to bed at night and I just knew it. So it would like go and I'd walk on the path and there I'd see my heart and what I knew to heal. What did I need to do to heal my heart? And I did this for days. And then the 30th day, I remember I was in my kitchen making some lunch and all of a sudden I felt this like kind of fluttering in my chest. And I'm like, right. I've been working at feeling love and feeling my heart, but I tell you, it's all connected, our mind, our body, our spirit. And it did open and soften my heart. And there's practices. And that's what I have in my book, how to feel more love, how to feel more flow, how to feel more just into this moment.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I think that it's so important that we recognize that we are all connected. We are all connected. And so when we are
Mhm.
feeling love for ourselves, we share that love with others. When we share love with others, they share love with others. And it can grow like that. And remembering that we are all one is
Mhm.
so, so important. So thank you for sharing that. And
Mhm.
as a reminder for all of us that we are truly one. So
Mhm.
thank you.
Mhm.
You've mentioned your book a few times, and I absolutely want to have you share this with us. And first of all, I want to say congratulations. It's
Thank
been out for over a year now, I believe.
you.
And also, it's been endorsed by Mel Robbins, which is
Mhm.
so fantastic. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So, it's Everyday Awakening
Mhm.
is the title, and it's 5 practices for living fully
Mhm.
and feeling deeply and coming into your heart. And can you share with us how this came to be? Was it something that you had been thinking about for a long time? Did it just strike you suddenly and you just immediately started writing? How did that whole process go for you?
I would say my life journey has led me to write this book from my personal experiences of facing into death and what does it mean to be alive. And then I left the corporate world and I became a chaplain. I was a chaplain at our trauma hospital, level one trauma hospital. And then I was a hospice chaplain for years. And it was such sacred work. It was so amazing. It was so soul shaping. And being with so many people as they left their body and at the end of life. And I experienced many people the last days, weeks, all of a sudden have an opening, an awakening of life. And they'd have this, and then it was beautiful. And then they would die. And my message with my book is you don't have to wait till you're in a crisis or upheaval or end of life. You can choose this right now to open and awaken into your heart and soul and to this oneness of the universe. It's all here. And I'll share, I think there's several paths in this direction to opening up and awakening. I think one is people that go through a real crisis, upheaval. I mean, I would fit in that category, maybe not as common. I think a second category is people that are just longing for more. They're feeling a nudging, an emptiness, maybe a profound kind of sadness. These are many people that I work with in my private practice who maybe they've done really well in their careers as a doctor, attorney, executive, and women of all ages, but there's just something's missing and there's a longing for more. And then a third path is people that are already on a path. Maybe they have a yoga practice or a meditation practice. So I think people come at this differently. But again, the message is how can you awaken into your soul, that oneness with all that is, that deep, deep sense of pervading love and peace that we can all experience right now. And it comes down to, honestly, it's a practice and it's a daily choice and practice how we're living our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And thank you for pointing out that we don't have to wait until the end to realize. And I think that, and you probably could share stories of people who have realized, I wish I had done something differently, right? But now it's too late. And so your book, it sounds like really gives people an opportunity to look at how can you live more now
Mhm,
and not be regretting not living when you're dying. And
mhm,
we are all every day dying, right? I mean, we
mhm,
really are. And so recognizing that we don't have an infinite amount of time here, how can we live more right now? And yeah, I mean, if there's anything else you want to share on, that would be tremendous.
mhm. It is interesting for being a chaplain at our level one trauma hospital and then at hospice. It's a little different experience. I would say majority the norm in hospice is people died at peace.
Mhm.
Maybe it wasn't to the last day or days, but people I felt like really did generally work through unrest or forgiveness or issues. And there really was a profound sense of peace in the people I was with. Even where I could see, and I'm a mystic, intuitive, I get a lot and see a lot. I would see like a glow around people and in the room, right when they were leaving their body. Now, the trauma hospital is a little different because it's sudden. It's like a sudden incident, something happens. So it's a little different experience when there's just a sudden crisis event. But again, I found people really found tremendous peace when they were leaving. And my feeling of, again, going back to writing this book, which I did, it came to me as a vision 10 years before I wrote the book. I saw that I'd be writing this book. And then during the pandemic, every night I couldn't stop writing. I was writing and writing. It just poured through me. But again, the message of like, just everyone listening, how are you choosing to live your life? And tuning in. What is life giving? How are you being led? What can you feel into? How are you choosing to live? And it takes strength and it does take courage to decide, I want more for my life. I want to have a fuller life. I want to feel more love. And these are all conscious choices of how we're living every day.
Thank you so much for going into that with us because you're right. I mean, the experiences of death can be varied as I don't even know how to compare it, but anything is possible, right? And so, thank you for explaining kind of the differences there with your experience. Let's talk a little bit about how as a hospice chaplain, you were really on a journey at the end of the life with these people. And is there anything that you can share with the listeners that can help them in their journey right now to begin to live more fully?
Mhm. I would share with people from my experience, again, take it with a grain of salt, but death is not an end. I witnessed so many people at the end of life, a sense of like their spirit leaving their body. I could sense and see and feel it. But then, and I write about this in my book, many people I was with in hospice within days, a week would come back and see me in the middle of the night. I would open my eyes and like, vroom, there they would be, a sense of their spirit hovering around me, sometimes like a smile, and then they would be gone. And it was just a knowing that we transform. Death is not an end. Our spirit does leave our body. Can I go farther and say where we go? Well, no, but death is not an end. And I ended up actually having to put up energy boundaries. I would have to pray at night. You cannot come within 20 feet of my bedroom, my bed. It was just too much. I mean, I was with people all day and I was being waken up at night. But the message I guess I'd want to share about awakening is, yes, we have this precious life. How are we living it? How can we keep deciding? It's a choice to open, even with life being so messy. And I get it. Life is challenging. Life can be difficult. I really understand this personally and professionally. But it's a choice. Like, how can I keep learning? How can I keep being open? How can I decide to continue to work through when life happens and there's messiness and unrest, to work through it? Emotions, for example, aren't permanent. When we feel the pathway to healing, when we feel our feelings, I promise they move through you. They'll start to dissipate. They won't control or run you. So the pathway to healing, again, choosing how are you living your life and do you want to heal and what are the choices you're making? And that's a lot of, again, the impetus of why I wanted to write this book of how we all can heal.
Yeah, thank you for going into that, really, Catherine, because life is messy. We have bills to pay. We've got children to raise. We've got whatever is happening in the world, around the world right now. There's a lot of things happening, a lot of difficult things happening, and people have difficulties in their life. And
Mhm.
there's no denying that. But your point, how can you choose to get through that, work
Mhm.
around it?
Mhm.
What choices are you making about the things that are happening and how are you feeling about that? And your point about emotions are not permanent.
Mhm.
That's such a great reminder. The feelings, emotions, they come and go all day long. And what are you doing about it?
Yep. Yep. And I think every one of us, we can live multidimensionally. What do I mean by that? Anchored in the present moment. It's a choice. It's a practice. The more you do it, the more you're like, oh, I mean, you can truly have your anchor in just now, the moment. And then we use our mind for work or for planning, or you have to take a phone call and you have to organize something. But you can live anchored in the present using your mind and then all the dimensions of just what is now. I mean, I see spirits every day. See all these different layers, but we truly can live with that deep anchoring from our heart and soul right now. That can be our guiding force. And that is where that life, that aliveness, the preciousness of why we're even here, there it is.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. And I can't imagine because I've never experienced this, the spirits that have left a loved one or a person that I know, or in your case, just somebody that you are working with as they are transitioning. And so that must be quite an experience.
I would say yes. I would say it's a calling.
Mhm.
People that work in trauma hospitals, chaplains, people working in end of life hospice, it's a calling and there's a period of time. I mean, I love the work. It was so sacred. I felt so called to it. And then it did move towards, I felt this nudging inside, like I'm ready to work with a broader scope, people living day to day, not just at end of life. So honoring, again, the calling, who you're called and where you're called to do work and be in the world. I have one colleague, his name is Dale, lovely, and he's a hospice chaplain and he's been doing it for over 20 years. I'm like, you are amazing. But I think it's, again, who are we called to be on this earth, and tuning in and listening and following that path.
Yeah. Great point for sure. Just like recognizing what do we feel inside ourselves to pursue? And are we going to be brave enough to do that? So yeah, I think that's fantastic. Great points. Um, Catherine, this has just been so great. I just feel the point that you made about this isn't the end, like death isn't the end, and our soul moves on and I don't know, rejoins whatever the rest of the souls in the universe.
Mhm.
I just think that that's such an interesting way to think about it because, of course, people have difference of opinions on what does happen after we
Mhm.
die. And so I just love hearing your, kind of take on this. And so it's just, this has been so fantastic.
Oh, very fun
Good.
conversation.
Yeah, good stuff. So let's see where I want to take it from here. You had shared about the other side, the mysteries of the other side, and having experienced the things that you have with the cancer at a very young age and then the whitewater rafting experience. Can you share with us like what it was like for you? Did you experience something that was the other side?
Definitely. Again, as a child at 11 years old, praying to live, it was this physical, visceral feeling of this peaceful, warm energy pouring through my body. It was just took my breath away. And it was just a feeling of, whatever you want to call it, God, infinite spirit, was just like coming through me, that has a feeling sense I've had to this day. So absolutely. And then similarly, whitewater rafting, that same feeling came through me. And I think I mentioned I regularly see spirits, I've seen angels. So yeah, I think because I've worked so much on the platform in the field of end of life, that veil between this life and the next is thin. That veil between this life and the next is thin. And I just have the ability to kind of see the layers and see the other side. So I can feel a sense that we're not alone. In the morning when I wake up, I have some moments of gratitude and I think about what I'm grateful for, but then I feel it and I can feel this vibration in my body. And then I have some minutes of prayer, seeing my day flowing. And it's a feeling of just right away, I'm not alone. And I believe we have angels, archangels, guardian angels with us. And I can feel into that. And I call them in every day to help guide me. I feel it throughout the day and then in the evening. So, yeah, this is the world I live in.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And it's such a great reminder how you described starting your day, even
Mhm.
with gratitude and thankfulness and some prayers. I think what a fantastic reminder of how to start your day in such a positive way. And how much more beautiful can your day be when you are starting it out that way? How much more can you give when you're filling yourself up with that positivity? I think that's so wonderful and such a great reminder for all of us starting our day
Mhm.
on such a beautiful note.
Yeah. And everyone listening, just what is even today a takeaway, a ritual you could add? Is it in the morning? A gratitude practice. Another practice I love is just putting my hands over my chest area and breathing. And just brings me like, "Phew, here I am, feeling the warmth of my hands." You could have a loving kindness phrase. May I be at peace, or give me peace. A lovely exercise. It's actually, they call it now self-soothing. I've been doing this for a long time. But just what could be a practice you add in? Is it a morning practice, midday, maybe some body movements, a breath, a meditation? There's just so many different ways to just help you come into the moment, feeling into just now, feeling your heart and soul. And it's a choice again, and it's a practice for every one of us.
Yeah, for sure. Oh gosh. Again, this has been so wonderful. It's been such a fantastic conversation. You've mentioned your book. We talked about it a little bit. Everyday Awakening, 5 practices for living fully, feeling deeply, and coming into your heart and soul. So, is there anything else that you want to share with the person that's listening that they would find in your book before we begin to close out the show?
Well, I would just invite everyone listening to just take a moment and tune in. How are you living? How is your life unfolding? Are you moving and opening and growing? Are you feeling stuck? Is your mind running you? Just start there on awareness. It's all about awareness. Where am I? Tuning in, growing that awareness muscle. And even a quick comment to share. Here's a practice I've done for 20 some years on and off of just at the end of the day, asking 2 questions. What today was life giving? What gave me life, a sense of peace, breathing room? And what today was depleting? And this comes from Saint Ignatius of Loyola from the 18th century, but it's honestly a practice in many world spiritual traditions. But just if you tune in, what's life giving, what's depleting, if you did that every day for a week or two, you're going to start to see patterns. Again, just tuning in. Where am I? What do I want? Do you want to feel more alive? Do you want to feel more into just this peace? I think people are longing for peace and connection. And it first starts truly with ourselves.
Yeah. I completely agree. It's an inside job, right? I mean, we need to
Mhm.
start on ourselves and then the ripple effect as
Mhm.
we go out in the world. And yeah, great stuff, Catherine. Okay, so where can the listeners find your book?
Yes. My book, Everyday Awakening, is on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Bookshop. It's all over. You can also, I have a website, everydayawakening.com. And then I'm all over social media as Catherine Duncan with the C, Duncn, Catherine Duncan, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Yeah, YouTube. So a lot of sites.
Perfect. I'll for sure include all that information in the show notes for the listeners to easily find you and your book. And so, speaking of books, is there any other books that you think have been influential for you or beneficial that you think the listeners should check out?
There are so many books that I have read since a teenager. I'm going to tell you 3 quick books. One, Ram Dass, one of my favorites. His book, Polishing the Mirror, a must read, outstanding. Another genre of books is through Louise Hay. Her book, The Power is Within You. You Can Heal Your Life. She was a big mentor for me on my path for the last 30 years. Incredible work, a distillation of all of her work is about love. We're called to love and love one another, love her work. And one more that this year, 2024, that is just absolutely amazing is Don't Believe Everything You Think by Joseph Nyunjin. If I'm pronouncing his name right. Amazing. One of the best in the last couple of years. It's a short, quick read. It is outstanding. And it's all about how our thinking mind causes us all our suffering, which is completely true. And I just met him a few days ago and we had an hour talk and he's lovely. Must read. Check out his book.
Excellent. Great recommendations, Catherine. Thank you so much. Yes, I recently heard of his book, and so I've got to check that out. But all the recommendations you've just given us is fantastic. Love Louise Hay.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, so good. And then Ram Dass. I'm going to check
Mhm.
that out for sure.
Mhm. Yep.
Is there any podcast that you listen to that you think would be good for the listeners to
Mhm.
listen?
There's a lot of podcasts. I do like Oprah Soul, 10%. There's so many. I was just, one more just shout out. I was on a podcast recently, Joe Dimino, Dimino. He has a podcast, Neon Jazz. It's one of the top podcasts in the country for jazz, but he also now interviews people. And he was delightful, just so delightful to talk to. And one more, Dave Schrader. and his podcast, Paranormal 60. If people are interested in this side, the other side, angel spirits, we had a fabulous conversation. And one more, Nikki Sharp. She's wonderful. She's in London, just kind of about wellness and wholeness. Nikki Sharp's fabulous. So I could go on, but that's probably enough.
No, those are wonderful recommendations
Yeah.
for sure. And I'll link all that in the show notes so the listeners can find it. Good stuff, Catherine. Thank you so much. And I'd love for you to share again how the listeners can find you if they have questions, they want to just follow your journey, what you're working on. How again would they be able to do that?
Yep. Go to everydayawakening.com. I also, my website, catherineduncan.org. And then you'll see links to everything, all my social media and my blog. And I have guided meditations online. And yeah. So thank you so much. This was very fun talking with you.
Yes. Thank you, Catherine. It has been an honor to have you on. And this conversation has been so fantastic. Thank you for your time and sharing this with us today. I so appreciate it.
Thank you. Blessings to you and everyone listening.
We'll talk more soon.
Okay.
Thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in to another insightful episode of the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. We appreciate your time and curiosity as we explore fascinating topics together. If you enjoyed today's discussion, be sure to join us next week for another amazing episode. Remember, your journey of learning and growth is a continuous adventure, and we're thrilled to be part of it. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next week, stay curious and keep exploring those pockets of knowledge.